I guess that we're all forming a big old queue behind the Treasurer at the moment, hoping he succeeds.
Yeah, this is a huge milestone. Look, the devil will be in the detail. We need to know the means by which the tech titans, such as Facebook and Google, will be forced to pay. But this is the first time, let's put this in perspective, this is the first move of this nature in the world. So it's an extraordinarily important milestone in the fight back against tech titan monopolies.
Yeah, and we are, and like you said there's more detail to come. But I spoke to the Treasurer this morning, and he basically said that they're pushing for this mandatory code because they weren't playing ball with the voluntary code. So moving forward, do you expect them to roll over easily, Ben?
I think if you go by their form to date, that's a 100% no, an emphatic no. The only way these guys actually are brought to the table is kicking and screaming with the threat of regulation hanging over their heads, which is to them kryptonite. They have traded on the false notion, the scam, as Paul Kelly puts it today, of that the fact that they claim that they're not even publishers. We all know that is patently untrue, and in fact, billions and billions of dollars have been generated into their coffers by virtue of them publishing for free news content, which in many cases has taken days, weeks, and months to accumulate. The other thing I wanted to mention in relation to this is what needs to be addressed is an emphasis on premium quality journalism. One of the big problems at the moment in the 21st century media landscape is that you have originators of content. They're the traditional media outlets, like newspapers and in particular, that spend a lot of time with journalism generating stories. Aggregators then step in as the middlemen, rip off those stories, and then the Googles and Facebooks reward those freebie sites because it gets more eyeballs. As a result, there's no value then that comes back to the originators of the content.
Do you think, Ben, do you think like something like the Daily Mail should get dragged into this as well? Because they do a lot of that, taking other people's content and then and using it on their websites.
Well, the way that the Daily Mail would be dragged into it is if they no longer get rewarded via Facebook and Google's algorithms for ripping off stories. At the moment, they're rewarded for that because just by virtue of the fact that they make their stories free, there's not much journalism that's going on there. It's just basically a rip-off of the original journalism that's being done by the traditional mainstream media outlets, not just the Daily Telegraph and the Australian and the News Corp sites, but also the Nine sites as well, that are actually doing original journalism and not getting fair value for that.
Yeah, some really great journalism too. And that's not just an Australian thing, it's worldwide. Everyone's struggling with this at the moment. Mainstream media has been hit hard, of course, by COVID-19, problem being with advertisers, but then it had already had a huge effect leading up to COVID-19. So, I mean, given what you know, Ben, I mean, I don't know whether you can answer this question, but what do you think would be, appropriate remuneration?
Look, I wouldn't venture to say what that should be, but it should really be somehow it should be calibrated so that it rewards premium subscription journalism, so that it is actually being paid for, and a clip of the ticket goes back to the originators of that journalism. Let's not forget, Peter, that right across America, across Europe, and indeed Australia, there are news deserts. There are areas where there's actually no news outlet because the likes of Facebook and Google have ripped out 80 to 90% of revenue, ad revenue, riding on the back of content that they've ripped out for free from those news originators. This is one of the greatest scams in corporate history. I mean, they make the robber barons of the 19th century look like corporate Santa Clauses. It's basically what's happened is they've outflanked regulators because this has happened so rapidly.
Again, the Treasurer didn't have an answer to this one just yet because they're still working on it. But, fines, I would have thought, Ben, would have to be significant given the financial firepower that these mega companies like Google and Facebook have. I mean, would you suggest that fines for breaching the code would have to be significant?
They'd have to be extremely significant. If you were to, for example, fine them in the magnitude of millions, that would be chump change. That's to give you some idea of how big these companies are. In Europe, there have been some significant fines that have been issued by the EU Commission. I think in the order of 500 to 600 million euros against Google. That's the biggest to date. But we're talking about money that you and I can only, we probably can't even wrap our heads around it, Peter.
No. I mean, just finally, Ben, I mean, the Treasurer has got to be applauded on this. It's a ballsy move, isn't it?
Yeah, it's outstanding. This is great. And look, again, you have to wait and see just how this fleshes out. It needs to be meaningful. But for the government to take this step shows that it recognises the value of a free mainstream media in a good working democracy. And I think they need to be congratulated for that. They're the first jurisdiction in the world to take a step this far. And it's on the back of Rod Sims' landmark report. Rod Sims is the head of the ACCC, landmark report into the monopolistic practices of the likes of Facebook and Google, which really set the benchmark for evaluation of their business practices worldwide.
Okay, Ben English, really good to get your thoughts this morning. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Peter.